Imagine this. You're standing in a dim hospital corridor. The fluorescent lights above flicker with a clinical indifference. Down the hall, a mother weeps beside her grown son, who's overdosed for the 3rd time this year. A nurse gently places her hand on the mother's shoulder, whispering words of reassurance. A counselor walks in, speaking with a soft voice, radiating care. Everyone means well. Everyone is trying. And yet nothing changes. The son survives again. But tomorrow, he might not. And you wonder, quietly, uncomfortably, is all this compassion helping? Now picture something stranger. A man steps forward, not with tenderness, but with fire in his eyes. He looks at the son and says nothing comforting. Instead, he speaks a cruel truth. You are the architect of your own suffering. You are not a victim. You are choosing this. We've built a world that rewards empathy, elevates it, wraps it in the language of morality. We're taught that to suffer with someone is noble, that to soften the blow is kind. But Nietzsche didn't trust this narrative. He looked deeper. He asked harder questions. And until you confront that, no one's pity will save you. The room freezes. Gasps fill the silence. How dare he? But deep down, part of you wonders, is he wrong? They crack the surface of everything we assume about virtue. But Nietzsche didn't write for the comfortable. He wrote for the few willing to burn through illusion. He believed it was rooted in resentment, in the weak tearing down the strong, in the elevation of suffering as sacred, rather than as something to overcome. And while the world celebrates saints, Nietzsche admired those who dared to rise beyond suffering, who refused to make pain a badge of honor. What if kindness, when misplaced, becomes a cage? What if mercy, stripped of wisdom, grows teeth? What if, in our rush to rescue others, we are secretly feeding the very thing we want to stop? When you give and give, but nothing changes. When someone wraps themselves in their own suffering and asks you to keep feeding it. And when you stop, when you pull back, even for your own sanity, you're labeled cruel, cold, heartless. Of will and becoming believed that compassion, often seen as the highest virtue, can become humanity's most seductive poison. To Nietzsche, the unchecked glorification of pity was not just a mistake. It was decay in disguise, a quiet erosion of strength, growth, and truth. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher of the abyss, we don't like to hear that. It was anti-delusion. He believed that true flourishing, the kind that leads to power, to artistry, to meaning, requires struggle, confrontation, even suffering, not coddling. Or on the receiving end, drowning in comfort, never forced to stand. Maybe both. Let's look beneath the soothing language of compassion and trace the roots of its shadow. Because Nietzsche didn't just challenge modern morality, he exposed it. Not indulgence, not pity. What if compassion isn't always about love but control? What if your comfort is keeping someone weak? What if your pity feeds their identity as a victim? What if behind every "let me help you" is an unconscious whisper? Stay small so I can feel big? These are not easy questions. He saw the modern obsession with compassion, especially the Christian ideal of mercy toward all as a mask for something darker. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange tension when helping someone starts to feel wrong. But what if you're not? What if stepping back isn't abandonment, but liberation? What if real growth sometimes demands coldness, even cruelty? What if compassion becomes dangerous when it denies reality? Nietzsche's view wasn't anti-human. So what, then, is the role of compassion in a world obsessed with it? When does it uplift, and when does it enslave? And are we, in our desperate need to feel good about ourselves, actually sabotaging those we claim to love? You've been there, either on the giving end, drained from helping someone who refuses to change. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to ask the forbidden question. What if compassion isn't always good? What if Nietzsche was right? Because the truth is unsettling. Sometimes mercy kills the will to rise. Sometimes, kindness becomes cruelty in disguise. And if we're not careful, our love can become the very thing that breaks us. Let's go deeper. And what he revealed might change how you see everything. We live in a culture that canonizes compassion almost reflexively. The suffering are to be helped, the broken mended, the fallen lifted. And to question this reflex is to court moral exile. But Nietzsche, ever the dissenter, stood at the edges of this well-lit temple and asked, what if we are healing what should be allowed to die? It's something far more sinister, a covert denial of life's fundamental nature struggle, becoming transcendence through hardship. When you pity someone, you don't uplift them. You place yourself above them. You say, you are incapable. You cannot endure. Let me take the burden for you. And in doing so, you deny them the sacred fire of growth through pain. To understand why he dared such blasphemy, you must first understand what Nietzsche saw when he looked at the human soul, not as an optimist or therapist, but as a surgeon of spirit. He didn't see pain as the enemy. He saw avoidance of pain as the real sickness. And in compassion, especially the kind driven by pity, he saw the perfect disguise for this sickness. It tells us to embrace the weak, to exalt the meek, to see power as sin. Is it really for them? Or do we crave the feeling of being good, needed, morally superior? Jung would have warned, every act of outward virtue contains the shadow of the self. For him, compassion is the one true moral impulse, but only when it springs from genuine identification with the suffering of another, not superiority over them. Yet in modern society, this line is blurred. He believed that much of what we call goodness is the morality of the herd, the weak may creating values to keep the strong in check. In this worldview, compassion becomes a weapon, not a gift, but a leash. Our compassion is often performative, transactional, even parasitic. We turn suffering into currency, sympathy into power. We get to feel important, righteous, essential. Heroes are those who suffer visibly, who wear their wounds publicly, who overcome not through mastery, but through communal validation. Nietzsche would say, this is not evolution. This is stagnation. Compassion, when disconnected from challenge, becomes the velvet hand that strangles. It holds you so gently that you never notice you're being kept from walking on your own. He doesn't ask, how can we make people feel better? He asks, what makes a person become? The rescuer must ask, what am I feeding in myself by rescuing this person? But Nietzsche believed that in doing so, we've rejected life itself. We've made morality an apology for weakness, the part that wants to break free, not be held down by soft hands and gentle lies. He speaks to the hunger you feel in quiet moments when you're alone with your disappointment, and you know that no one is coming to save you. It comforts pain, but never questions its roots. Worse, it enshrines victimhood as identity, like honesty, like pushing someone into the storm, not shielding them from it. And we've shamed strength into silence. Pity, for Nietzsche, is not love. Jung, too, saw the dangers of unintegrated kindness. He understood that too much light, unbalanced by shadow, leads to delusion. When we act as the eternal savior, we deny not only the other's capacity to evolve, but our own dark motivations for saving them. The unchecked assumption that compassion is always good, always healing, always wise. He called Christianity the religion of pity, not because it preaches kindness, but because it glorifies suffering. Compassion, when unexamined, becomes the morality of decay. It celebrates the broken, not for rising, but for remaining broken. It rewards helplessness. Trauma researchers like Gabor Maté show how many people remain trapped in cycles of dysfunction, not because they lack help, but because they've built their entire identity around being helped. And the systems that surround them, therapists, families, Even governments often reinforce this loop by providing just enough comfort to survive, but not enough friction to change. And the consequences run deeper than we admit. Enter Carl Jung, Nietzsche's spiritual descendant in many ways. Why do we help? Schopenhauer, ever the bleak observer, went further. Nietzsche saw through this. Think of the cultural narratives that surround us. Villains are those who refuse to bow to pity, who choose strength, who embrace personal will. And the psychological toll is immense. When you are constantly told that to suffer is virtuous, why would you ever seek to rise? When you are constantly comforted in your victimhood, why would you ever seek transformation? When others carry your cross for you, why would you ever learn how to carry your own? This is the hidden poison. Modern psychology echoes this in eerie ways. We do not speak of this because it's uncomfortable, because it feels cruel. But Nietzsche's entire philosophy is a mirror for our denial. And his answer? Struggle, solitude, will, fire, not comfort. Not pity, not shelter. He speaks to the part of you that is sick of being coddled. Because salvation, Nietzsche believed, is not something given. It is something seized. You must become the hammer. And that's the paradox. True compassion, real compassion, may not look like kindness at all. It may look like distance. Because only through that storm can they find who they really are. So the problem is not compassion itself, it's the illusion we've built around it. Nietzsche's voice cuts through this illusion with brutal clarity. He asks, what if your pity is a prison? What if your mercy is their misery? What if the most loving thing you can do is walk away? You don't notice it at first. It's subtle the way compassion sedates instead of awakens. The way the world urges you to soothe rather than speak truth. It begins with a small choice. You see someone suffering, and you withhold the hard word, the painful mirror. You offer softness, reassurance, a gentle nod. Because that's what good people do, right? And you realize slowly, uneasily, that what we call help can sometimes be a velvet noose. But over time, something sinister grows. It teaches people to identify with their pain, to hold on to it as a symbol of worth, a justification for inaction. And it teaches the compassionate to avoid truth in favor of approval. What begins as comfort mutates into quiet enablement. What started as empathy becomes a conspiracy of stagnation. This is the hidden danger Nietzsche warned us about. Unchecked compassion doesn't just coddle the weak, it manufactures weakness. They learn that to challenge the sufferer, to say, I see your pain, but I also see your refusal to rise, is to be called heartless. But the damage goes deeper into the soul, into culture, into the collective story we tell about suffering. They repeat their wounds like mantras. They invoke their suffering to excuse their behavior. And they attract endless streams of sympathy, people who mean well, who offer their energy, their time, their lives, until they are drained. Let's zoom in first on the individual. A system where suffering becomes a form of power, where being hurt grants you social capital. And when pain becomes currency, who would dare heal? You've probably known someone who weaponizes their pain. Someone who builds their entire identity around what they've endured. What happens to the helper in this dynamic? Slowly, they begin to vanish. Their boundaries erode. Their truth becomes taboo. So they stay silent. The more pain you display, the more empathy you receive. The louder you scream your trauma, the more virtuous you appear. He predicted the rise of a culture that exalts weakness and punishes strength. A culture that praises the one who bleeds loudly, not the one who bleeds quietly and still builds. A culture that mistrusts those who rise, who grow, who overcome, because their presence is a mirror to those who haven't. They give, and they die a little inside. This is the compassion trap, a psychological vortex that Gabor Maté alludes to when discussing codependency and trauma. The helper becomes addicted to the role of savior. They believe that without them, the wounded cannot survive. And the wounded, consciously or not, reinforce this dependency. It becomes a closed system of shared illusion. I need you to stay weak so I can feel strong. But for those who have built their identity on being wounded, this feels like an attack. Nietzsche would call this a morality of the weak. Now pan out. Zoom further. Look at society. We cast our discomfort with growth onto those who embody it. We turn strength into villainy. We sanitize our words, sterilize our thoughts, and avoid confrontation, because confrontation is now seen as violence, while stagnation is mistaken for peace. The slow, creeping sense that you're not allowed to speak your truth anymore, only your sympathy. We have built entire institutions on this model, where victimhood is valorized and accountability is seen as aggression. Social media platforms reward emotional exhibition. He doesn't ask us to be less feeling, but more discerning. He challenges us to differentiate between compassion that liberates and compassion that imprisons. And that requires immense courage, because the moment you say no to someone's victimhood, you will be attacked. You will be told you lack empathy, that you've abandoned them, that you're selfish. This isn't compassion. It's compassion theater. Nietzsche saw this long before Twitter existed, and in that mirror lies danger. From I will help you feel safe to I will help you become dangerous to your limitations. Because real strength, authentic power threatens the foundation of pity-based morality. It says, you do not need to be pitied. You can transform. As Sartre wrote, man is condemned to be free, but freedom is terrifying. It demands responsibility. It strips away excuses, and many prefer the comfort of chains over the terror of choice. Every time you say yes to comfort when you know no is what is needed, you betray it. So what does society do? It silences the strong. It forgets the fire that turns suffering into strength. It mocks discipline. It mistrusts the will. It labels those who speak hard truths as cruel, toxic, or cold. And in doing so, we collectively fall into what Jung might call a shadow projection. But underneath this fragile equilibrium, something is rotting. Relationships built on overhelping become hollow. Communities built on shared wounds become echo chambers. Nations built on perpetual grievance become emotionally paralyzed. And you, the individual within it, start to feel it in your body. The exhaustion, the guilt. This is not empathy. It is erasure. Nietzsche offers no comforting escape here. But Nietzsche would ask, selfish or sane? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone wants to heal. Some want witnesses to their pain, not solutions. Some want loyalty to their suffering, not freedom from it. And if you offer them the tools to rise, they will resent you. This doesn't make them evil. It makes them human. So compassion, true compassion, must make a dangerous turn. It must evolve from soothing to sharpening, from cradling to challenging, because anything less is not love, it's surrender. And when society surrenders to the cult of pity, it withers. It forgets how to rise. It forgets the sacred violence of growth. That fire is still in you. But every time you withhold truth to protect someone's feelings, you smother it. So ask yourself, how often has your compassion come at the cost of your integrity? How often have you lied to make someone feel better? And how much of your strength have you silenced, just to be seen as good? Nietzsche's challenge is not to stop caring. It's to care in a way that frees, not flatters. And to do that, you must first face a terrifying realization. Your compassion has consequences. Not all of them are kind. You feel it, don't you? The slow burning friction between your soul and the world's expectations. The moments when your silence feels like betrayal, when your kindness feels like a cage, when you know the truth, but bite your tongue. Again and again. And again. But what if you didn't? What if you stopped choosing comfort over clarity? What if your love stopped bending at the altar of emotional safety? What if your care came not from fear of hurting others, but from devotion to their becoming? That's the rebellion Nietzsche dares you to ignite. It doesn't look like cruelty. It doesn't sound like cold detachment. It sounds like a steel-tempered voice saying, I will not reduce you to your wounds. I will not treat you as fragile. I will not lie to make you comfortable. This rebellion begins with one word, no. No to self-erasure in the name of empathy. No to feeding someone's dysfunction just to preserve a relationship. No to playing the savior while you quietly drown in resentment. Because every time you say yes to someone else's weakness at the expense of your truth, you lose a piece of yourself. And you teach them to fear their own strength. But Nietzsche reminds us to live truthfully in a sick society is to become dangerous. The world won't applaud this rebellion. In fact, it will punish you for it. It will call you cold, harsh, intolerant. You must confront your own shadow. You must fight your own dragons. You must bleed without a witness and rise without applause. And that's the point. You're not here to be liked. You're here to become. Who won't validate their excuses, but will hold the mirror steady when they tremble before it. Let's return to the beginning. The mother, the son, the corridor of mercy. What would rebellion look like in that moment? It might mean saying, you are not sick. You are choosing this, and I will not help you stay here. It might mean walking away, not as abandonment, but as invitation. It might mean letting someone fall, not because you want them to suffer, but because you want them to rise on their own. This is not cruelty. It is trust, radical, terrifying trust in another person's capacity to face the fire. Because to grow, they must burn. And to burn, they must be alone in the flame. Jung called this individuation, the sacred process of becoming who you truly are. But individuation can't happen when others are always shielding you from yourself. The one who transcends herd morality, who creates their own values, who dares to say, this is who I am, not in rebellion to others, but in affirmation of the self. And so must they. Rebellion means breaking the cycle of codependence. It means offering strength instead of comfort. It means being the one person in someone else's life, but this also means turning the mirror toward yourself. You must ask, why do I need to help? In fact, it may leave you lonelier than you've ever felt, but it will make you real. And from that realness, others will eventually rise too, not because you saved them, but because you showed them it was possible. Not walls, but lines drawn with love and fire. The sacred discipline of stepping back and letting others fall and trusting their ability to stand. Of no longer making yourself the solution to someone else's story. You are not their God. You are not their therapist. You are not their justification for avoiding the mirror. Do I fear being unnecessary? Not weaponized truth, but truth that cuts because it must. Do I tie my worth to being needed? Am I rescuing others because I'm avoiding my own becoming? The rebellion, if it is to be honest, must start within. Nietzsche wrote of the Bermensch not as a tyrant, but as a symbol of self-overcoming. You cannot become that while shackled to the identity of the eternal helper, and neither can anyone else. So what does this look like in action? Your rebellion is to become the catalyst for that metamorphosis, even if it means being hated. It looks like boundaries. It looks like truth-telling. It looks like absence. It also looks like letting go of your savior complex. You are your own becoming, and so are they. This rebellion won't make you popular. It won't win you applause. This is what true compassion looks like. Honest, fierce, sometimes brutal love that refuses to coddle weakness and demands the fullness of being. It's the mentor who says, "You're better than this," and walks away. It's the friend who refuses to nod along with your victim story. It's the parent who lets you fail. It's the partner who demands your truth, not your performance. In a world that idolizes emotional comfort, this is sacrilege. But in a deeper world, the world of soul, of truth, of spirit, this is sacred. Because when you choose to rebel against false compassion, you do something rare and holy. You give people their suffering back, not as punishment, but as power. You trust that they can carry it. You believe they can transform it. And you know that only in doing so will they become something real. So this is your choice. Will you keep handing out pillows in a burning house? Or will you be the one who screams, "Get out. It's time to build something new"? Nietzsche believed that compassion becomes dangerous when it protects people from their own metamorphosis. Because truth is not always soft, love is not always safe, and becoming is never comfortable. There is a moment rare, trembling, sacred when the illusions finally collapse. No more masks of martyrdom. No more well-packaged pity. No more lies draped in virtue. Just you and the truth, staring each other down like two wild animals in the dark. And suddenly, all the years you spent rescuing others, cushioning their falls, softening your speech, carrying their grief for them, begin to feel less like love and more like fear. Fear of letting go. Fear of being alone. Fear of seeing who they and you really are when the scaffolding of compassion is removed. A brutal, luminous, soul-crushing clarity. And this is where Nietzsche brings us not to despair, but to a final reckoning. Compassion is dangerous when it denies the necessity of suffering, because suffering is not the enemy. It is the crucible. It is the womb of rebirth, the forge of will, the storm that breaks the false self and reveals the one that was always hidden beneath it. And when you interrupt that process, when you swoop in to ease the pain too early, to rescue too fast, to soften the blow that was meant to transform, you don't save a life, you delay a becoming. No longer the soft voice that says, "Let me carry you," but the fierce presence that says, "You were made for this." This is the final, most radical truth. Suffering is sacred, and what rises from it is more real than anything comfort can ever create. The ability to say yes to everything that shaped you, including the pain. Yes, it hurts. Reverence for your path. Reverence for the wild, terrifying alchemy of becoming. Yes, it breaks things, but what it breaks was never meant to stay. Nietzsche's entire philosophy leads here to the worship of becoming, of self-overcoming, of amor fati, the love of one's fate, how it applauds trauma only when it is polished, performative, safe. And from this place, compassion takes on a new shape. It becomes the friend who doesn't interrupt your grief, but sits beside you in silence as you collapse and waits until you're ready to rise. Without saving you, because he knows what wisdom it will carve into your bones. It becomes the guide who lets you suffer through your mistake. It becomes the mentor who watches you flail and struggle and scream and doesn't flinch because she trusts the fire. This is compassion redefined, not as rescue, but as reverence. Reverence for your pain. And once you see this, you can never unsee it. But to stop abandoning yourself in them, you will begin to notice how the world infantilizes those in pain, how it uses euphemisms to avoid discomfort. But you will also begin to notice something else, something beautiful, terrible, holy. But I will walk beside you as you face it. I will not flinch as you burn, because I believe in what that fire will make of you. You will notice the ones who suffer with dignity, the ones who bleed without begging, the ones who transform their pain into art, into wisdom, into power. These are the ones Nietzsche admired, not because they were superior, but because they refused to become defined by what hurt them. They transcended it. They did not ask for pity. Who holds the mirror steady without stepping in to fix what should be faced? They did not seek rescue, or to let them fall completely so they can find what rises in the ashes. Very few have the strength to trust another's process, even when it's messy and dark and full of mistakes. They bore the unbearable and became more than they were. And now it is your turn, because I know what you truly are. Beneath all this, beneath the fear, the pity, the illusion, you are not a victim. You are a becoming, not to become heartless, but to become fearless. Not to abandon others, not to kill compassion, but to strip it of its illusions and let it rise anew, sharper, truer, braver. Let it become the kind of compassion that looks someone in the eye and says, I will not coddle your weakness. I will not feed your story. I will not protect you from the truth. This is how we honor each other, not with softness that sedates, but with courage that ignites. So when someone you love begins to fall, ask yourself, is this the moment to hold them? And when you are in pain, ask yourself, am I reaching for pity? Or am I ready to become something new? Because the world is full of saviors, but very few are willing to watch someone suffer with dignity. But if you can learn that if you can become the one who trusts the fire, who honors the suffering, then you will have become what Nietzsche believed was so rare and so necessary. Not a comforter, not a martyr, not a rescuer with fear, but a soul forged by fire, a spirit carved by truth, a human being who dares to say, I will not shield you from your pain. I will walk beside you as you face it. And that is love, not pity, not softness, not sentimental mercy, but love that burns through illusion, love that dares to let others suffer and rise, love that trusts in transformation. That is the compassion Nietzsche never condemned. That is the compassion we must now reclaim. Let this be your final mirror. Where in your life have you mistaken rescue for love? Where have you silenced truth to offer comfort? Where have you caged another or yourself in the name of compassion? Find those places, set them on fire, and rise. Because becoming begins the moment you stop confusing kindness